Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I am Mr. Rain, and yes, it's been a little bit, but that's mainly because there hasn't really been much to talk about. Yes, the whole thing with Blizzard is something I do want to talk about, but there was a lot of news that week, and I didn't really want to, get into it then, just because of how often the information was being updated. So now that that's kind of died down, I'm going to talk about it, just so we're all on the right page and the same page. But for now, what we're talking about is Insurgency Sandstorm yet again, and this time about a call from the developers or from the community manager, however you want to call him, asking for support with the competitive play. And Big Fry has put in his 2 cents, I put in my 2 cents, and essentially they're asking for help to grow the competitive scene, or rather to regrow the competitive scene, because there was, one thing that drives Insurgency competitive is the DGL, Digital Gaming League, and they have been adamant at playing Insurgency in 2014 on the source version, all the way up to now, and now it's kind of been dying down and down and down just because of, like it or not, lack of support from the developers for the tools that the DGL has been wanting, and not only the DGL but competitive players that are just outside of DGL, specifically me. Hello. Um, I don't want to read Fair's post because I feel that's a bit of a disservice. Let me get the page back. But I do agree with a lot of his points. I'm leaving his post on screen for the time being. And I do agree that their focus has not been on competitive play, and now they want to make their focus competitive play, or at least put some sort of, progress towards competitive play. And I think the problem is essentially what Big Fry paints out, which is that they just have so much they want to do for the game, and they want to make so many things for the game that they can't really focus on one or two main things. It's, focus on this thing first, then focus on that game mode, and then we're going to do this, and then we're going to do that. And that's kind of the problem that Insurgency is in right now, or Sandstorm is in right now. There's just too many moving parts going around, and not really any that fit well with the competitive scene. The only thing that I can say that has helped the competitive gameplay has been optimization, minor optimization fixes that have been happening over time. Some very minor weapon balance, like maybe one or two guns that were completely useless are now a little more tolerable, but not really anything that changed the meta. And then like one or two spawn peak areas, and that's about it. There hasn't really been a whole lot done specifically about competitive, specifically about firefight, specifically about how the game plays in firefight and the optimization for that mode itself. Um, it's just little fixes here and there that kind of fix like issues that are there, but it's just like on the edges. It's not really anything that really impacts the gameplay or impacts the way that um, competitive play works in Insurgency. And one thing that competitive really needs is, or the game really needs, is a better spectator mode and just a better replay system. The spectating mode is very bad. Hold on. Phone call. Alright. I'm back. Why does this keep doing that? So essentially, I'm not saying NWI is bad. I'm not saying they're bad developers. What I am saying is that a lot of the support that they have for this game just doesn't benefit anything. Just doesn't benefit anything competitively. There's been no real reason to play competitive. And then the other reason why competitive Insurgency doesn't take off is because it's very difficult for new players to play the game. In general, just to play the game. That's why you see the majority of casual players in co-op and the majority of casual players in push. Those are the only two modes they understand. They don't understand skirmish. They don't understand firefight. And the problem with this game is that it's the same reason why it makes it good. And that's kind of why it's difficult for new players to come in. It doesn't give you a whole lot of direction. It doesn't give you a mini map. It doesn't give you 3D spotting. It doesn't give you 2D spotting. You have to figure everything out for yourself, type of deal. You have to figure out how the maps work. You have to figure out how the maps rotate. What are the best routes to take? What are the routes to never take? What are the sniper spots? Everything is there, just like in any other game. It's just not highlighted like in other games, and that's fine. I think that's what makes Insurgency great, is that people can build their own playstyle without having to be told how to build it. They can play a certain route or a specific route that is unorthodox, that is not just a typical 3-lane map. And that's what catches me off guard a lot when I play this game, when I go against other players in Firefight that I know are not tied to DGL. Some of them are still pretty decent, or some of them are really decent, because they play in such a weird way that it actually counters my playstyle. And it's not because they're doing anything better than I am, it's just that they're playing differently. And that's really cool. But the thing is that because I play with DGL players, because I know a lot of DGL players, or how a lot of DGL players tend to play, I know how to adapt. The DGL players know how to adapt, and for the most part, we know how to counter these type of new plays that are being made, because they'll do something good. The casual players still do something good, but then they'll either rely on it or they'll not move. So then you basically know where they are for a good portion of the match, and all you gotta do is just get behind them and you're dead. Or you just outshoot them in the next combat. So it's very difficult for a new player to try and get into competitive, or even then, it's difficult for a player to play casual firefight, much less competitive, because there's just not enough tools for new players to come in. And the only new players that stay and stick with firefight are those that don't care about their score, or those that want to get into the DGL. That's really it. And there's not, unlike Source, where you had a ton of servers, and there was always a chance that you would never play someone who was tied to DGL, and you had just had a lot of custom or a lot of casual players in a one lobby. We can't guarantee that anymore in Sandstorm. One reason being is because the community community server list is still pretty bad. The community server browser is pretty bad. I have to wait like 5 seconds for it to load in, and then I only get like 10 servers, and then most of them are always empty. So either I'm not getting the right servers, or there's just no community servers that are active most of the time. And that hurts the game overall, because just overall, if you want to have a casual firefight community, there's not really anyone who can set up a casual firefight server that they can control. There's no Lion's Den. For those who are part of the Insurgency Source community, you know what I'm talking about. And yes, I did get banned from Lion's Den as well. But what I mean is that there's no level ground for a new player to learn firefight. It really is being thrown into the Lion's Den. And I feel that's why Insurgency always ends up being a niche game, and why it ends up being a small game. And that's why I feel a mode like Team Deathmatch benefits this game, because it's a high respawn, low risk game where you can learn the maps, you can learn the controls, you can learn the weapon recoil, you can learn how the game feels, you can learn the time to kill, you can learn the attachments. It's just a sandbox that allows you to do so many things in a game without having to die easily and quickly, and having to wait a minute or wait until the round ends to get back into the next game. So that's my problem with Sandstorm and competitive in regards to new players. I went on a big rampant rage, not rage, but a rant and it starts here. I don't want to read the whole thing, but this is essentially, I'm using this now as like bullet points just to make sure I covered everything that I talked about. Yeah, so one other thing is that weapon balance. Weapon balance needs to be looked at, and not, it doesn't need to have a big change, but there needs to be some adjustments here and there. Primarily with the 7.62 battle rifles, the FAL, the M14 EBR, and the G3. The G3 not so much because of its lower rate of fire, which is perfectly fine. However, I feel that, or I don't feel, I know that DGL players and competitive players know that the best weapons are the battle rifles. Why? Because they one-hit kill most players, and in most circumstances, at most ranges. And secondly, they have high recoil, but it's just enough for a player to be able to counter and use very effectively. And I feel that needs to be changed a little bit. I feel that the 7.62 weapons should have a little more recoil of some sort, whether it's horizontal or vertical, just something that throws it off so it's not as reliable as a 5.56 weapon. And yes, there needs to be variety. There needs to be weapons that don't play perfectly for competitively. But at the same time, you have to look at the weapons that are being used the most and figure out why and figure out how to change it so it's not as effective as it is currently. This game, the way it's designed, there's only going to be a few guns anyways that anyone's going to use just because of how the game works, right? You don't have any reason to choose any other weapon other than the one you feel the most comfortable with. That's how Insurgency is. That's how Sandstorm is. And I'm perfectly fine with that. There really shouldn't be an incentive to use one gun more than the other because you want to unlock something. I know progression is a big thing that drives a lot of games, but Sandstorm doesn't really focus on that. They focus on just core gameplay, and that's what makes Sandstorm great. The thing is that some of these things do need to be changed to some extent, just so there's a little more challenge on the competitive side. So whether the competitive games have its own theater with its own values, or you just do some small changes overall and figure out what works and what doesn't. And of course, the best way to do this is by using your test servers, and not only that, but allow mod support to be able to change weapon damage values and weapon recoil values. And that way the DGL and other competitive players can have their own server with their own values and be able to test out and figure out, what to do and what to change. Something that the DGL didn't do back in Insurgency Source was change the recoil of any weapon, as far as I know. What I believe they did do was change the rate of fire for the MP40, which was more for fun than it was for anything else. But not really anything that changed the meta a whole lot. And I feel that that's something that can really be looked into for competitive play. Like I said, spectating tools need to be a lot better than what they are. The spectators and the commentate and the casters, they shouldn't be getting kicked out of matches while they're spectating, and they should have a lot easier to use controls to move from one character to the other in the game. And the reason being is not only does it make it better to watch when you have smoother and more and just better controls, and more responsive controls. It makes it better because because right now, the way Insurgency is and Sandstorm is, the action happens so quick that you can't see everyone's death. You can't see everyone's kill. It just happens. Like, one guy dies, you see him, and then all of a sudden 2 other people die on the other side of the map. It's like, well, what happened? And that's what makes Sandstorm great. It's that speed, it's that intensity, it's just how quick the game goes. And a caster can't show you all of that. Even with the best tools possible, he can't show you all of that. But with better tools, he can kind of go, okay, this guy died, and this guy died, and then that guy died, and then they can go to the person who got the double kill, or whoever's last standing, rather than having to hit tab, go to the menu, click on this person, click on that person, and like triangulate what's going on in the match. Like there really needs to be something that makes it easier for the spectator and the casters to be able to see that action as it happens. And then, of course, I also added in that I feel the replay system needs a lot of work as well. A lot of people cover this. Replay system works decent and works best in first-person view, which is fine for the most part. But what if you want to do an overhead view? What if you want to, show a third-person view? The replay doesn't sync up very well in third person. It doesn't sync up very well in many aspects, and I know that it's a lot of work, but I feel that needs to be addressed because that replay system can be really cool to use to make videos. It can be really cool to use for competitive players to strategize, to see what the other team was doing, things of that nature, things that they have that tool now. The replay system is in the game. It's just not at a point where you can actually use it for videos. And if you look at a game like Rocket League, for example, and my Rocket League videos way back when, I had to use replay videos. I had to use my replays I had to record my replays. The computer I was using at the time could not record and play the game at the same time. So I had to play the game, say, hey, that was a decent game. And then I had to save the replay, and then I go to my replays, and then I record the replay. And the replay on Rocket League is very seamless. I'm not expecting that to happen in Sandstorm, but if it can be to the point where, it's not as clunky as it is now, I feel that would help not just competitive firefight or the competitive community, but just the overall community as well. And then I have my little laundry list in the back end here. Best way to balance rank is to balance it around high skill players. Figure out what weapons are being used most and why. Figure out why one side wins more rounds in a map and why. Look at the middle objective and see which side tends to cap the objective the most and why. Look at cross map peaks and figure out which ones need to be adjusted or removed. This goes for all modes. Look at typical nade locations and decide whether or not they should stay. This goes for all modes. Look at spawn locations and whether they're easy to spawn camp or not. This again goes for all modes. I know it's a lot of work. I'm willing to give my input with screenshots and videos to help with spawn camping. That's absolutely true. And it's entirely up to you to decide what stays and what goes. Some maps work really well with Firefight, while others, such as Farmhouse East and Precinct West, don't translate very well in competitive play. The reason being are listed above. Some areas are too open, which leaves room for a lot of cross-map peaks, and while some areas have hardly any cover for safer exits from their spawn location. Not only does this make the game not fun and competitive, but in casual matches as well. And to take a page off of CSGO, it probably would be best if there's a set list of maps for competitive play, and then the regular maps and then just have the entire library of maps for casual play. Because not every map in Firefight is balanced. Not every map in Firefight works well for competitive play. And we're here. The DGL is here, I'm here to tell you what our complaints are. And it's up to you to decide what you want to do with that feedback. Now, I wanted to go into a little bit of a theory time, which is this half of the post, which is that you guys want to build up the competitive scene, which is good, but I don't think you're trying to build up competitive tournaments or competitive modes, rather, competitive tournaments. And rather, you're trying to build up an audience for the competitive game mode itself. And the thing is that, other than the problems I listed above, the DGL players have set the standard. They set the standard for how many rounds should be in a competitive match. They set the standard for how many games should be in a competitive match. They set the standard for the skill ceiling. DGL players still play competitive ranked. And the thing is that no matter what you do, it's never going to be balanced because you're going to have DGL players playing ranked. And they're going to have a Smurf account, or they're going to be playing with a lower ranked player in order to play against those newer players. And guess what happens? Those newer players are not going to keep playing. A new player who gets decimated on his own is not likely to continue playing ranked. That new player needs to be introduced to a community, and right now, the only competitive community Insurgency has is the DGL. So right now, the only way I can see competitive working is if you play and work with the DGL. And what does that mean? It means encourage their tournaments. It means cover their tournaments on your own channels. It means funding to some extent, to some degree. There needs to be money going into this. And I know that Insurgency itself is a ways away from being competitive and having a big and strong competitive scene. That's not the point. The point is to rebuild the DGL back to what it was, back in the Insurgency source. Have it so you have 16 teams in a division. Because that's what happened when the DGL started in Season 1 or Season 2. You had at least 2 divisions. And then you had the cross-division match at the very end, which is pretty cool. And now the last time that I saw the DGL, they only had 1 division. The teams just began shrinking and shrinking until we only had 1 division worth of teams. And that needs to change. I do feel that there should be more than 1 division in competitive Insurgency overall. But the DGL has been crippled to the point where it's barely functioning at this point. And it's because of all these issues. It's because some maps are abused and some maps never get picked because they just don't work right. They don't work right for competitive play. They're not balanced. Everyone uses battle rifles because they're the strongest and the most reliable. There's no reason to use a 5.56 for really any situation. There may be some who still use the 5.56, mainly probably because that's the only role they can pick. But aside from that, everyone's using a battle rifle. You know, there's a lot of grenade spam in the game. Especially for early game, there's a lot of grenade spam. And I feel that needs to change because this is Insurgency, not Counter-Strike. Grenade spam should be an option, but it shouldn't be an option for every map. And right now, it sort of kind of is. But that's really my concerns with the game for competitive. I feel like there's a lot that has to be done to make competitive feasible at all. There's not really anything that you can do other than build up the DGL. I don't see any other way. If you try to build the game mode itself, the DGL will come in and they will ransack the new players. They will make it hell for new players to come in and play the game and win matches. The only way that won't happen is if you do get hundreds of players playing competitive, which isn't going to happen. Because there's no incentive at all. The only thing that you can do is either host tournaments on your own or team up with the DGL and host tournaments with each other. Because until you show on your main screen, on your main stage, on your main medias what competitive play looks like, you're not going to get competitive players in your game. Your game is built primarily off of casual players who are looking for a more realistic experience, who are looking for a game mode like Push, who are looking for co-op experiences. And all of your previous patches that have been going on throughout this year have been designed to help those players, not the competitive players. That's really it. I am Mr. Rain. Thank you all very much for watching. I hope this video helps to some degree. At the very least, it recorded my thoughts, and I'm very happy with what I just said. So, that'll be it for today. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you guys in the next one.